Jack, 4 qualifiers to the All American Futurity, something that I know you're used to having choices.
Yeah.
It's got to be one of the best things and one of the worst things about the year.
Yeah, it can be, Tom. I mean, it's great to qualify for, but you know, somebody's going to be a little upset and disappointed that I don't get to ride their colt back. But it's a good. I mean, I'm glad I'm in that situation. I'd rather be 4 of them in there than 1 not having none to be looking for a mount.
Yeah, because situations like occurred in the Rainbow where
Right.
you actually did not have a qualifier and wound up on the winner, they're rare, aren't they?
That's hard to come by. It really is. I mean, you have to be pretty lucky to, you know, take somebody else's seconds and like you said, end up winning the Rainbow and feature Mr. Bojangles. But and maybe one of my horses that I qualified, you know, maybe one of the other riders, you know, which it still it pays good. I get half of what they make. So if I don't win, I hope one of those do.
Relative to some other times you've had to do this, how tough was this decision?
It really wasn't all that tough, Tom. I mean, after Ochoa run his race in the trials, I mean, before we got back to the winner's circle, I was pretty sure that that'd probably be the one I was going to ride back. I mean, he really run a good race. He run pretty easy. I didn't really have to push him all that hard. He was fortunate. He run it a good time of the day. You know, he had a little tailwind, and the racetrack was as good as it's been probably all year when he run that in his trial. And that was one reason I pretty well had it figured that he was going to run a good race, but I really didn't have to pressure him all that hard to get him to run like he did. He come back super good. He's probably better now than he was going into the trials. Actually, the colt has really stepped up like you like for one to do. I mean, most of the time they don't really improve, or sometimes they back up a little bit from a trial race. But this colt has really seemed like he stepped up and getting better every time. Right now, I've took him 3 times since the trials, and he's gotten better every time I've taken him.
It'd be kind of nice to win one for a guy like old Johnny Jones, huh?
Johnny Jones and I have been friends a long time, and he needs it. I mean, you know, Johnny's getting older, and yeah, I mean, it would be great for me in my career, but it would really, I really like for Johnny to win the race. It really would.
Well, let's take a look at some of them that you qualified and didn't ride back, and kind of tell me what the relative strengths are.
T-Cost, that colt probably improved more than any of them that I did qualify from his last race in the Rainbow Trials. He really stepped up. I mean, he ran a super big race. You know, I mean, I knew he was running fast too. I mean, he ran a 15. He ran the race after the other colt, but I mean, that horse really stepped up. I mean, he really improved like he liked for one to do. I took him back to the track, you know, 4 or 5 days ago, and he really come back good. I mean, that horse has got a legitimate shot to win the All American. He really does.
And then you qualified, of course, another one for Sleepy.
Yeah, Mr. E's 1, 2, 3. That colt he's a good colt. He's very honest. You know, I don't think he's quite fast enough probably to win the All American, but anything can happen. You know, if some horses get in trouble, get a little bumping and knocking around, this colt's quick enough away from the gates that he could get up there and get the big end of it if everything goes right for him.
And Denver Pass.
Denver Pass is a colt that's getting better every race. I mean, he really runs good on the end. He can run the 1/4 mile. He hasn't been quite quick enough away from the gates. That was one of the reasons I didn't ride him back, because he's just not quick-footed enough to stay close the first 50 to 75 yards. But if that horse steps up a little bit and gets a good clean break and gets away on his toes, he could be right there, because he can run the 1/4 mile.
So what does Ochoa have to do better than he's done it before in order to win?
He just step away with him. You know, that's all he's got to do is get him a good clean break the first 4 or 5 jumps, and he can finish. I mean, he can get the 1/4 mile, and that's all my main problem is. You know, that I'm looking at just the first 3 or 4 jumps. If he gets away within a neck or a shoulder, half a length of him, I think he's going to be an easy winner.